Entrepreneurship at the University of Michigan. I've been there for about 4 years. I help to run the Student Accelerator. I run the clean energy, the Michigan Clean Energy Venture Challenge, and a bunch of other things. And so it's great to be here, and I'll let Wes start.
I'm Wes. I work for the University of Michigan in the Office of Technology Transfer. My background is in startups. I came there initially to help form companies and ended up managing what our biggest deficit is talent. So finding resources for our startups, both people but also money, but people being the hardest. I also work with student entrepreneurs. I've worked with quite a few, I guess, I work with probably about 100 student companies a year, maybe a little bit more than that. And I initially started out undergraduate degree in computer science, ended up working for a venture-backed startup that was acquired by a public company February of 2001. I got an MBA. Yeah, it was good. We sold. What about everyone else? Yeah, it could have been for more. Let's see. That's probably the shortest version I could do.
That's great.
Yeah.
Adrian?
Hi, I'm Adrian. I have started 3 tech companies. One spin out of the University of Michigan Tech Transfer Office, Shepherd Intelligent Systems, B2B Fleet Management, thanks to my friends here. Then did a spin out of that company into a company called SideCar, which is an instant rideshare company that is now getting some good traction around the country. And also I'm a founder of a company called FlockTAG, which is a customer engagement tool for small businesses in the greater Midwest. And now, more recently, I've been focusing on investment and run a small investment fund called First Step Fund, doing micro investments into very early stage businesses.
I'm Bill Mayer. I'm the Director of Entrepreneur Services at Arbor SPARK. I've been involved in 4 startups, everything from web, IT. We had a company that did sort of enterprise-enabled transaction software back when that was really kind of interesting to do. Our first customer was Silicon Graphics. I've also been involved in an optics company and actually run a fund. And so I joined Spark even a little bit reluctantly because I've never been very good at working for people. And so we're really lucky in Ann Arbor. We have a lot of innovation, a lot of great startup companies. The university certainly generates a lot of intellectual property, and sometimes that's in the form of a new company being started. Adrian's a good example of that. So we used to, have to give Adrian a hard time about doing the right thing as a startup. Now he's learned how to do it and helps us. And so Spark has a couple of fundamental elements to it. We do support for early stage technology companies. We do support for large going concerns. For example, Toyota, Hyundai, Trumo are companies in Washtenaw County that we work with. We have a talent component, and we also run some capital programs, some of which are on behalf of the state of Michigan. So we're under contract to manage those programs for companies that are outside of our area applying to Spark, and then we can perhaps invest in those companies through either a micro loan program or the Michigan Pre-Seed Capital Fund.
Hi, I'm Sandra Cochrane. I have not ever been involved with a startup. I feel like at a disadvantage here. Let's see, what do I do though? I wear all kinds of hats. My primary job, I am a technology business consultant with the Michigan Small Business and Technology Development Center. I work with a lot of high-tech startups to help them develop business models and business plans, financial forecasts, investor readiness, and those kinds of things. So I've worked with hundreds of startups over the past 10 years or so, helping them launch, get investment funding, and grow. I also spent about 7 years managing the Southwest Michigan Innovation Center, which is a life sciences business incubator in Kalamazoo. And I'm also still very involved in business incubation. Anyone who was in the panel next door a little while ago, I was working on that. So I know a lot about business incubation, student incubation, all those kinds of things. And when I'm not busy doing that kind of thing, I do some work on the side for National Science Foundation. I review phase 1 and phase 2 SBIR grants for the government. So anyone that does grant work, our agency does do screening and help you make sure that you get the best application possible. And just darn glad, happy to be here.
Great. So the purpose of this panel today is to hear, I don't know how many students are in the room. 2? Okay.
All right.
So now,
All right, boys, hope you're ready. Here we go.
Just
Woo!
pull up your chairs.
You get an A.
So, who's your faculty? We'll send them an email for A for effort. What we could do though is are there anybody else who's working on a startup that's in here that are seeking?
Don't have to be a student.
If you're not a student, okay. The reason I ask is because since we have the purpose of this panel was to have students stand up and give a pitch, and we'll let you guys do that. And then this panel will give you critique and feedback. But because we have a lot of other people in the room, maybe we could see what's going on. We have a lot of talent sitting on this panel, so we can find out what else you guys would like to talk to folks about. Does that seem to be reasonable?
It does. Although the first question is, are you guys working on a startup?
Down to 1.
We're down to 1.
Down to 1, okay.
Put all the pressure on me.
So no pressure, but yes, go ahead and pitch and do it perfectly.
What I'm attempting to do is design a environmentally sustainable clothing line based mostly around cleaning down machines, and I want to do fit completely manufactured in the United States, and it's like a niche market type of.
So did everybody hear that?
No.
Okay. So do you want to say it, stand up and do it louder.
All right.
Do it.
All right. Good job.
Pitch to
Show
the audience.
Alma.
Yeah.
Show what Alma College can do.
My idea is for a environmentally sustainable fashion line based mostly around denim jeans using organic cotton and another type of material that's made partly using recyclable bottles. So it's like a fabric that the inside filament of the thread is made from recycled bottles and the outside is wrapped in cotton, so it feels just like normal denim, but the tensile strength is stronger and you're reducing waste that's being able to by putting it in jeans. So that premium denim kind of niche market for, they're going to be handmade, hopefully in Michigan or at least in the US.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Always brave to stand up and talk.
Yes? Oh, well, first what we're going to do is give this guy feedback, and then you can go after that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. It gives me more time to get.
Okay.
Yeah, no pressure about pitching your idea. All right. You did a great job, by the way. So
Yeah, good job. Entrepreneurs need to be really, really tough. So, good for you.
Where do you want to start?
You go
Lead
ahead.
us. Oh, you're starting with me. I think the idea is interesting. One of the things that you'll have to think about, denim and they're commodity. So, you've already identified you're going to be niche. So thinking about, who is the market for this and what is important to them and how will you position this as something unique and different in a very crowded space where there's lots of choice. That'd be my first comment.
Yeah, differentiation is going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
There's no one out there. There's a lot of people out there doing what you're already doing. So what is going to make you what will allow you to be different? You have to think about that, and find out what problems people have with jeans, right? There's various different things. So certainly go out, talk to your fellow students at Alma, and around, other friends that are going to schools in different places, find out, and then you'll understand the college market, and then you can go into a different realm, but really go out and do that customer discovery
I would talk to 100 people
At least.
that you don't know.
at a minimum.
And
Yeah, you
don't ask them, would you be interested in this product? Ask them what they care about. Do you care about where you get your jeans? Do you care about the environment? Does that ever factor
Yeah.
into your purchasing?
Don't lead the witness, right? Because if I say, I love chocolate ice cream, name one of your favorite flavors of ice cream. Chocolate's going to be the one of the things that comes to your mind. So don't tell them what you're doing. Tell them about how do you buy jeans? Where do you buy them?
How much do you pay for
What do you look for in a pair of jeans? What problems do you have with getting jeans?
How much of a premium would you pay for something that's important to you?
Another thing that I heard you say that might help focus, you said it's niche, so if you're going to go niche. You said they're very tough and resilient. What kinds of people are going to need jeans like that? People who break dance or are on their knees a lot? People who work
You're
with...
dating yourself, by the way.
Well, I know, I'm just... oh, shut up. Like people, I'm thinking for personally, like people who ride horses, you know, my daughter is always ripping her jeans in the barn with the horses. If you're going to go niche, maybe think about that. How niche can you get and really own that area? And then you've got to go talk to those people and find out, does it matter? But the strength was something that I heard that might be unique and different, perhaps.
And this strikes me as one of the opportunities. The trick that I love is where you set up the website and people can place jeans in the basket and buy it, but the jeans don't actually exist. So, I'm sorry.
That just makes me mad.
We don't actually have it in stock.
Just do a Kickstarter.
You know, right. And so, you know, to really, because it's one thing to say, hey, I'd buy a pair of jeans, but it's another thing to actually, you know, put in the credit card number and try and pull the trigger on buying a pair of jeans. That could be a very interesting indicator with your focus or your early customer discovery of would they actually buy it.
Right. So in consumer products, you either have to spend a lot of money to convince people they need something they don't really need, or you have to actually solve a problem people care about. And there's this adage within entrepreneurship, which is it's a lot easier to sell painkillers than it is to sell vitamins. Other way around. It's a lot easier to sell.
Yeah, painkiller.
Yeah,
If there's
yeah.
pain, it's
So,
easier to sell that.
Because, you know,
Reactive
do you take vitamins? Do they work? We have the foggiest idea, right? Maybe.
But if you got a headache.
No one does. You can't measure it. Pain is measurable. But, you know, if Wayne over there kicked you in the knee and blew out your knee, he does that. Then, you know, I hand you Vicodin, and all of a sudden the pain goes away, and then it wears off, and it comes back. It's measurable. You know it's solving a problem. So figure out what that problem is within that market. Maybe it ends up being custom clothes that you can design your own and have it made and sent to you that fits your body type. Maybe there's something that's a problem that you don't have access to a certain kind of material or a certain kind of look or something that sets that gene apart from everywhere else.
And do this discovery before you spend a lot of money. Because you don't know, you have an assumption that you're working with right now, but that's all it is.
So I want to ask you a question, and this is something that we struggle with a lot. How did you arrive at the jeans with the filament inside? Did you identify the fact that you were tearing your jeans too often, and that really made you unhappy? So you went out in search of jeans that won't tear? Or did you come up with an idea for jeans and now you're trying to figure out who would buy these jeans? Yes. Okay, so you invented the product first.
That's a tough thing.
And now you're trying to figure out who would buy it, right? Okay. And so, you know, that's how I would say more than half of the startups that we see come into being is somebody invents something, a technology is thought of, and then you try and figure out who's going to buy it. And usually, if you look at the successful startups, they're addressing a real market pain. So what the opportunity might be is to sort of go out into the market and try and understand what's problematic about jeans.
What's your name? Josh. So, Josh, when you go off and all this stuff is right, you want to go and do a lot more research. And if you go out and find that, man, this is just too tough, right? Don't be afraid to just throw it away. Think of something else, right? You know, I don't think this is your best idea, personally. Now, I don't know you that well, but I bet you it's not. And I think this is pretty tough. Too. Pretty tough to do. And you know, yeah. And even, you know, so I'll bet you can think of something better that is more sustainable, that has better differentiation, that is easier and cheaper.
The potential that you're more passionate about.
But, you know, hey, if you're way passionate about this, you know, you want to do it, but I bet you got something better in there.
Figure it out, see if there's any market, and then don't be afraid to throw it away. That's what.
Don't be afraid.
And
that goes to
we all have terrible ideas all the time.
Especially him.
Especially.
Yeah, the more terrible ideas, the better.
Right.
But you get through it faster, right? It's a lot easier to be, this is not going to fly. Let's not spend time, money on it, and you're that much closer to the big
100 ways
idea.
not to make a light bulb.
And don't lose sight that we're in the Midwest too, right? It's okay to have an idea and test it, And if it fails, you want to identify it quickly. And I always like to focus on trying to build entrepreneurs as to trying to build out technologies or companies, because I can think of a lot of examples of people that really struck me as having the tenacity and creativity and drive to make something successful. Probably not their first idea, probably not their second, but they just keep at it until they get something that sticks. And this idea of throwing away, if you're building software, throwing away your first basic code and continuing to evolve as your product moves closer and closer to the right solution, that's just part of the process.
So, how do you feel now? It's great. So really take this. One of the things about Michigan is that we really want people to learn to accept failure and be successful. Not that you will be, but that's what they're talking about. That failure is
we fail
part
all
of
the
success.
Time. Man.
I'm basically curious is what makes you think you can combine plastic with material to produce a linen?
I wouldn't be making I'd be buying it. It's already been done.
Well, it's already done. So there's something out there that already exists.
Yeah, so
Okay, so you're working off of something that's already been created.
All right, so we have. I saw some new students walk into the room. Just for those of you who came in late, what we're doing, this is a forum for students to pitch their idea and then to get feedback from our panel of experts. But because we only have a few students, we're also accepting anybody's idea because we'll just keep talking about it. So I know that you had your hand up next, and then if there are other students in here who have an idea, we'll go from there. So stand up, speak loudly. You get about a minute.
That won't be a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, I've had this idea bouncing in my head for a couple of years now, and I want to work with like graphic design and do kind of all like the real like technology, technical. So I don't want to use all those before you with the garb or lingo, but I want to tweak and make more updated road construction designs. And use like, what I'm talking about is like, the boring kind of construction zone, 15 miles, blah, blah, blah. Or here's this, winter advisory, go slow. Well, instead of like, you're driving down the road or driving down the highway, you see that and you just go, well, here's my idea. One of those like billboards and they have like the kind of electric, not electrical, but it's like video type where where you see it and it's like just they show like a kind of almost they make it animated, so it's like a kind of Pixar type thing where it's you go, ooh, there's cones, there's construction zone, I can go this way, and you're going to see a little car driving down the road and that's you, or instead of like it says there's ice and snow coming down, you see, or on the ground drive slow, you see actual little like, snow accumulating down, and then you see like cars banging, kind of like with their bright lights going, oh, whatever. So I want to make it more like grab people's attention.
Yeah, that was going to be my first concern. So you want me looking at the sign, and in the meantime, I'm going to hit something in front of me?
No. Okay, I understand. That's a good one. I can take that. No, it's not like where you're just kind of driving down the road looking for like, animated signs and just going, wow, well, boom, get into an accident. It's more, it's more of like, just so you don't just see because not a lot of people that like, especially me as a driver, so that's where I'm going with it, is me as a driver, we're like, I don't really like to look at all like just the word text. Sometimes they don't always, show up, so you're going, what does that say?
So you want to create more, better graphic designs for road signs in emergency situations.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
All right. Well, the first thing that jumps to my mind is who buys construction signs, and that's government, right? Yeah. I think government's the worst.
Yep.
To try and sell to.
Yep. The worst.
Right? Yeah.
The worst.
I've done it. It's
so
awful.
Good job. You hit the most difficult customer you can possibly sell to. All right. And so I appreciate you. So you're making a better construction sign. I mean, that's in you know, a couple words, that's what you want to do. And that can take a lot of different forms. Okay, you know, the first thing that jumped into my head when you started talking about this was the thing that was going around where you can hack one of those signs that says danger zombies.
Zombies.
Kind of thing. So, you know, there's a little awareness around, let's say, less than 100% boring road construction signs. Okay, so your value proposition for doing this is you want to make motorists safer, correct?
Yep, safe, more aware of what's out on the road.
Okay, well, that's a place to start. So, you know, the first thing I wanted, you know, I'd want to look at is what are the you know, Michigan Department of Transportation or things like that. What are their initiatives? You know, what have they identified as important to them? Have they put out solicitations for, you know, we're trying to identify whatever to make our roadways more safe? And are smart signs, intuitive signs, you know, new technologies to make motorists safer, is that something that is on the radar already of your target customer?
Right. The digital signs have been around for what, 10, 15 years, something like that?
How much
what's
the
cost of it, and what's been the I'm sure they've done the studies, the reduction in accidents from that in a given area, geography area. I don't know. I'll bet it's public data though. So finding out, you know, if there's a foundation for that.
So you're specifically talking about just construction signs, because traditionally signs are regulated by shape and color mean something in all driver's ed books for every state. It's pretty much standard across the nation. So this would be.
I probably would like to start local first, then go global.
Right, but if you get back to what I just said, there's a standardization of shapes and colors that represent things.
I wouldn't mess with that.
You can't change that.
So it's a regulated industry.
So it's regulated.
Use them.
Construction signs may be less. I think traffic barrels and cones are rented actually, and not owned by many states. So they don't have to worry about keep it. I swear they just keep them on the side of the road as warehousing. But so a lot of states don't own those barrels. So it may be an opportunity to look at those 2 or 3 companies that actually are in that orange barrel business, that there may be opportunities if they sell the signs too, because they're all temporary. And so there may be an avenue there.
You also have to determine if there's actually a problem.
Yeah, I'm still.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is this? Does anybody perceive the current situation as not working, and could your product save lives? And that would be, if you can ever get your pitch to be, I'm saving lives, you get a lot further than we're going to make them prettier. You know, it's a lot. I mean, that's a big deal.
If lack of looking at signs is the problem, I don't know that you solve that problem unless you're becoming something that's a big distraction.
So, okay, just the last thing I would do, if this is something that you're serious about, and before you build a sign or anything like that, I would do your discovery work. I would see if you can get in front of some municipal managers at the city level, at the township level, talk to somebody at MDOT, you know, do some discovery work to find out, is there any potential here? Or is it something that, you know, they're already working on solutions or whatever it is?
Do you know where construction is? Do you know places where there's construction? Do you know people who travel? Yeah, let it be rhetorical. Do you know people who are traveling by those? Do you know what times they'll travel by them? Give them a call during that time. Catch them in the moment and find out, is it a big problem? Did you miss the sign back there? Did you, find out in the moment. Most people I interact with, lack of signage comes up, but not
I missed that.
Transparent signage, or I just keep missing signs. It's like saying I missed the speed limit sign, officer. That's usually not an excuse. If it is, by the way, let me know.
I'd like to use it.
That's valuable data.
GPS now.
Let's see if there are any other students who have any ideas. Okay. I'll let you go first, and then you after that.
Okay. Good job.
Stand up and
Good job.
speak loudly. Yeah, nice job.
Hello, I'm Diane. kind of early stage. I haven't done too much to my idea is my market pain is I was planning a trip to Tennessee and trying to come up with an itinerary and want to stop in Kentucky and in Ohio and such things, and I have no way of mapping. I'm going to use my mobile device to get me there, just using Google Maps or whatnot. I was thinking of trying to come up with an app or a website that has mobile usage too, you could make your itinerary on a website that would go from, so I start here in Michigan, and I know, a couple miles into my trip, there's a great diner that I got great reviews on, or, there's even ways that this could balloon into something bigger. Maybe you can get streams of reviews as you go. I'm not totally sure where the restrictions would be, but you can also map out your trip. So I stopped in Tennessee to go to the Mammoth Caves, and then I thought I want to go get breakfast before I do that. So I have it mapped out, and I can click next on my itinerary, so I can go here to here. I don't have to keep grabbing addresses, plugging them in, grabbing places, plugging them in. I've got it all set up so that on my mobile device, I can literally go my exact map. And it would be expanded upon if I could get to a certain place and there was a really well-designed way for me to grab, socially grab the things that people have. If I could tap into Yelp, views of places or whatnot that I could grab when I'm here, I don't know what to do, and it would all be concisely in my road itinerary.
Great. By the way, what school are you from?
Michigan.
UM? Yeah. Really? I've never met you before.
I actually graduated, but I'm not a
okay.
student anymore.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay. Great. What's this?
Can I?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I want to congratulate you on presenting a use case and a market pain initially, because as soon as you started saying, I want to drive to Tennessee and I don't really like to plan my itinerary. Yes, that's me. Drives my wife nuts. I just like to get in the car and go. And if I get hungry, well, then I find a restaurant, right? So you're tapping into, you're connecting with me personally and saying, yeah, if there was a piece of software, I don't care what the software looks like, it takes care of my fundamental lack of desire to plan an itinerary. Great, okay, cool. Then you can talk about, well, trust me, the technology works, but all you really care about is that your pain has been solved. Oh yeah, and it's affordable too. So that's great. The idea of laying out use cases for making a point that it will be useful in multiple scenarios, that's a very helpful way to try and present. So good job with that.
So, I think I've heard this idea for a while. Mm-hmm. I don't know that anyone's done it or done it well. You certainly have the travel guides worried about this, of being pushed out in like Lonely Planets and those sort of things, of trying to do things that are more interactive. Think about going to Europe, going to a lot of these different places, going to visit a city. What places should I hit? What are kind of the out-of-the-way places, that kind of stuff. It's certainly very interesting turning it at mobile, bringing in streams of data as we're getting more social data. We're getting more, you'll find out the locals seem to like this place based on this aggregated information if you get a full pipe of data. That part of it is certainly quite interesting. You'll have to come up with a business model here that ideally would not be too ad-driven, because it starts making the app a little smarmy, I think is the right word. So that's something certainly to think about, and things that don't corrupt it. You mentioned Yelp. Yelp's had some issues in terms of the credibility of some of its rankings. But pulling in that data, there's several different use cases here. Planning out the itinerary in advance versus doing things on the fly. You've kind of mixed those a bit. Very interesting, both, but figure out who that use case is first, that target, that's someone traveling from Michigan to Tennessee, that I know why you want to stop in Ohio is a separate question, but especially as a Michigan grad. But the tag some walls, but maybe to figure that out versus I'm going to go to New York City, where is a great place to get cannoli, or whatever. Oh, go to East Village. The answer is Vineros. So it may be something like that, where it's a place to discover city versus map a long trip. They're similar technologies, but different applications, and figure out where the bigger market is. Your personal desire may be the trip from Michigan to Tennessee, but it may be the first application is maybe just discovering cities. For someone who's making a trip to, let's say, San Francisco.
Discovering cities is really there, though.
But there's tons of these sort of things that are planning itineraries, and given a length of time, I want to get from point A to point B within this time frame. I need to get from this city to that city in this time frame.
I mean, I like a real-time option a little bit better, right? So you have put in a profile of what you're interested in for the trip. What museums, what parks, what sort of kind of eating establishments, and then real-time it pops up because you can have, Google Maps has an API. So does Yelp, that you can just plug into, and it just pops up as you drive by or you're reasonably close to, that says, hey, you might want to check this out. Hey, you might want to check this out.
So this is a bigger deal for us, and the reason I say that is we have kids. And this is probably something you probably haven't come up, but we have to think about stopping in a place that may have a playground, finding lodging that may have a swimming pool or something to get energy out. Because sitting in a vehicle for a while is not always conducive to bedtimes at the appropriate hour. Different target, different opportunity to sell things, but again, just a slight variation of the same model that may allow you to get into the space that you originally think.
The thing is, I think too, your key thing would be, are you a programmer?
I am. We're in a company. We're kind of launching ideas. It's going through starting a new labs program. So I work with a lot of web developers, software developers. So I have that resource around me. I don't personally have it.
So I guess you need it on your team, clearly, for something like this to understand how to use like the Google Map API. Could you plug in with Yelp, or maybe there's like a new startup in the tech arb actually that's doing something like Yelp, but they like to say way better. So
it's a differentiator.
But getting back to what Amy said earlier, which is make sure you go out and you talk to people first before you write. The fact that you don't write code is pretty awesome. I say that as a coder, not to disparage coders, but coders and engineers, people with my background, tend to want to just build things as soon as they find you have the idea, which is the big problem. And then building something for a population of 1, possibly 10. As opposed to going out, figuring out what all the parameters, what the minimum viable product would actually be, and then build that.
And talk to as many people as you can about how they would use this. Do they care? In the same conversation we said before, like you may change and pivot just a little bit, or you may have had the right idea all along, but you don't want to build an app before you know if anybody will use it.
You need to go off and do a bunch. You said the first thing you said was the most important thing. I haven't done much competitive research. There's a lot of stuff like this going on right now. You need to go and do a whole bunch of competitive research. You need to find out how much money they've raised, how long they've been in business, and how many users they have.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Not only just in what are people doing and how's it working, but what's failed. I think that this has been tried a lot of different times. Why hasn't it happened yet? So then you get an idea of what are the challenges you're up against. There could be some technological challenges that make what you're doing almost impossible or so expensive that, that's why it's been failing.
Timing could be good, though.
Right.
The reason is LTE, because getting good streams of data costs even more money, and, it was very limited just a year, 2 years ago. 3G is fine, but even before that, a lot of things did not take on. So there may be a landscape of things that failed because the technology wasn't quite ready. The quality of phones, the usability of phones, but now there's pretty much all the phones out there may have those capabilities, have enough data coming in to be able to do these capabilities. But I really focus on that niche. What is just because there's someone out there who has done something similar that has failed or has a similar product doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Right.
But,
But you need
But
to
understand
know,
why.
figure out
Why.
why you would succeed over them.
Exactly.
Great. Let's move on to another student. Stand up, speak loud.
I'm Josh. I have an exhibit going on right now. So there's an next man to leave. He's running the exhibit. I'm actually pitching tonight, in the elevator pitch competition, so we'd love to feedback on the app I'm running on. So I'm going to run you through a typical runner experience. You're on your daily run for exercise, and you're listening to your music, and a specific song comes on, and the song is this perfect tempo where you can match your running pace to this tempo. Everything begins to feel perfect and fluid, and your run feels great. And then the song ends, and a different song comes out at a completely different pace. You can't run to this song, it's not the right pace for you. You're running, you're just kind of thrown off. You kind of think, like, why can't I always be running that efficiently? So we're trying to solve that problem. I'm actually working on an app called Tempo Run. And what it does is it takes all the music on your smartphone, and it categorizes it based on tempo. It puts it in the levels 1 through 12, like a treadmill. And when you're on a certain level, let's say you're on level 6, every song will be the same tempo. We could run to that tempo to make it run much more efficient and enjoyable. And we think it'd be great because we've done some research and we've talked to people, and it really is a problem that's going on. If you're a runner, you know how important your stride and your paces, and this really makes it much more enjoyable and makes it easier and makes your running experience very fun.
So before we start, what school are you from?
MSC.
And I was wondering, it all now makes sense why you're wearing running clothes. Okay. Awesome.
That's good. That's it. Great job, bud. Just out of curiosity, before we get into it, do you have the ability to have a multi-level program to a run? So you start off with tempo 1, and then after 10 minutes it goes to tempo 5, things like that?
Absolutely.
Time basis?
So the two other features of our app, one is the preset workouts. So we'll have, if you want to practice for a 5K or you want to do a tempo climb, we have these preset workouts where you can set it up, you're going to start on level 1, go to level 2, level 3, level 4, whatever time interval you want to do for each of those levels. You can train for a 5K with our app, or a 5K training program. So we do have these preset workouts you can use. You can shift through the levels yourself if you would like manually. That's personally what I like to do. I like to have control of my run, have like a phone doing it for me. And another thing is we have streaming music radio, where you can, if you don't have your own workout music, you can stream it from, we're trying to work with SoundCloud or Spotify or one of those streaming music services, and you can select your genres and stream music into your phone, which is already categorized based on tempo.
Well, you got a good panel for this, because you got 2 runners plus...
I'm a cyclist,
so
it's perfect.
Yeah, so good for you.
It's actually, I was just running yesterday, and I had a Pandora on, and it was a kind of like a reggae, but fast. And I was like, this is awesome. So it's funny that you just said that.
Yeah. Good. Is your app in market yet?
It's not. We're in development now. I'm actually a senior, so I'm graduating in May, and we're launching in April, and we're launching version 2.0 hopefully again this summer to include everything.
Free app?
Is it iOS?
It's iOS, yeah. We want to launch on Android as well this summer. It's a huge market to get into. But our developers are more knowledgeable of iOS, so they're currently just working on iOS.
What's the model?
Well, so if you go, I have an Android. I have no music on my Android. I didn't even know how to get music on my Android.
You can stream from.
But stream from what?
Spotify free.
Oh, did you just say that and I missed it?
Well, we want to tap into Spotify. We want to work either cut a deal and work with Spotify, or SoundCloud's actually open. If you contact them and they accept you, you can just use their streaming music.
So we obviously all get what
Yeah.
you're doing. I mean, you've got us engaged. You've got us saying, "Wait, can I use it now?"
Yeah,
Or,
that was my thought too.
She's already thinking about technical details with her phone.
Here's the brochure.
So so you did a great job here. One thing that I think that, and I'm guessing here, but I'm guessing that you have a pretty strong team.
We do.
How many people are on your team?
We have 4 people.
Okay. So a global piece of feedback to everyone in the room. At Spark, since I'm the front door, I meet people that we don't know who they are. It's their first shot at launching a company, and we see the term solopreneur came up. Something that I want to make sure is said in this session is you can just get the beginning of a company with one person, but you can never launch a company with one person. So 4 people where you have developer and biz dev resources on that team is a huge asset. So, if you're in the position where it's just you,
what you'd want to do is sort of explain how you're going to grow into your next phase. When you have a strong team, make sure to showcase that, because it sounds like you guys have done a lot of work. You've got 1.0 up and working, and you're testing it.
We're testing, it's a beta phase right now.
Okay. Great. So yeah, it sounds like you guys are doing a great job.
You gonna charge for it?
Yeah.
Are
What's
you
your
gonna
revenue
have it for
model?
free?
Yeah, so initially when it comes out with version 1.0, we are going to charge $1.99 because that's what we did a research study, and that's what fitness enthusiasts said they would be willing to pay. But we know charging for apps can be kind of iffy in the market. So with version 2.0, we're going to have these preset workouts where you can purchase them for hopefully 99 cents or however many cents, and the app will be sold for free. So we'll provide in-app workouts where a revenue stream will come from, but then an actual app will be free.
And it's not a bad idea to actually start out with a paid app. That's actually a good strategy. People think that it's you should go free. You don't should. So.
I'm more generally on the free side. We had this discussion earlier. I think for you, again, to me, this is still an app, not a company.
That's right. It's an app.
And
right
so, I'll share with everyone else. In our earlier discussion, we talked about adding things in to create value to make this a company. The quantified self, the data, leveraging Fitbit, Nike Plus, those sort of things to give you more information about the user, what they're doing, help them design routines, bring in both the running and maybe the cross-train side of what their workout may be, will allow you to create some value here. I think there's an opportunity to sell music via iTunes Store or something along those lines, in-app sales but that none of that works unless you have a user base. And I think the free side of that can help get that user base. I'll qualify what I was saying against Adrian here though, is because I generally try to view companies, whether they're a data play or not, if this is a data play which I think you should work towards because that makes you more of a company, then free is better because data, you need that in order to get data.
But here's the point. In order to get data, they have to use it, right? People download apps and never use them many, many times. So what you have to figure out is that if I get a bunch of downloads for free, are they going to use it? There are enough people going to use it, as opposed to, am I going to get people to pay for it? You just run some numbers. 10 people who buy it and use it is better than 100 people who download it and only 5 use it, right? So that's the thing that you guys need to do a whole bunch of research on before you make this decision. Because it's like kind of a one-off decision. Once you get your first launch in the App Store, it's kind of
You should talk with people who've done it. Make sure, understand.
I've got a buddy who's doing it right now. I'll find me afterwards. I'll introduce you to him. Yeah.
Are there any?
Hey, I just wanted to throw in, there's been a product like this for call centers for years. So I can talk afterwards, but I think there are products out there like this already.
Yeah.
So you need to track down those folks and see how successful they are.
Actually, we're we've done a lot of research into the market, and we're very knowledgeable, at least to our knowledge of so far, our market and where our competitors are. So there definitely are apps out there.
That's what the also.
But I think there's
that
an
might
interesting.
say more about you, Victor.
I think there's still an interesting opportunity, though, when you think about what you may find is when you go through someone's, let's say they have 10,000 songs, it may turn out that in category 10, they don't have a lot of songs. Yeah. And this is a great opportunity for you to leverage that to get more songs. Absolutely. I think that side of the model is interesting, but we talked about casual users and those sort of things, and I think you want to be a little bit more on the more avid side. They're the ones who use it regularly, who are going to see the value, and if you provide value for them, you're going to provide value for others.
So we have time for one more pitch, I think, before we end. Are there any other students or any other entrepreneurs who have a pitch that they want to share with the panel and to talk about? Not one? Really?
Guess not.
What about you, Swetha? You want to say yours? It's good for you.
Called out.
Uh-oh.
Hi, I'm going to try to talk loudly, but my name is Shweta, and I'm one of the co-founders of Warmaloop. We are an Ann Arbor-based startup that has an alternative incubator for preterm infants. But last year I made a trip on behalf of Warmloop, and I went for 2 weeks, and those 2 weeks were unlike any other trip that I made, because I got to speak with patients, I got to speak with mothers, I got to speak with doctors, and it changed my perspective completely on, you know, what kind of conditions that these people are living with. So, you know, imagine, you know, when Detroit loses power for a few hours, everything, you know, it's all over the media. But these people don't have electricity, they don't have running water, they don't have a hospital that is 20 miles away. And when you have a baby that is born too soon, there's little to no hope for them right now. So after I came back from my trip, I felt compelled to come up with some sort of solution for these people. And that's exactly what Warmloop has. It's an alternative incubator that's affordable. So it's made by things that you could probably find around your house. And unlike our competitors, we truly offer a non-electric solution. It's not, you know, just a marketing tactic, but completely independent of electricity. And it's reusable, so very environmentally friendly. So that's the business that we're in, and so spread the warmth and stay blessed.
You're probably the least familiar with
No, actually I am, because I saw the pitch at Accelerate Michigan, so it's like, I'm kind of like, I don't know what I can say, because I saw the pitch, I thought it was really good. So,
Yeah, and I have to kind of recuse myself
Yeah.
because I'm working with you. Spark is working with you guys, giving you some support. So I know your model all too well.
yeah.
I've seen it 3 times.
And I've known Grace for a long time, so, yeah. I've
So
known
this
her
is
for a
an
long time.
example, and I'll just say this to everybody. So Warmaloo was a student project that came out of a material science senior design class, and they decided to go through the whole entrepreneurial programs at the University of Michigan, and through that they got really connected with everything. So they went through Tech Arb, they went through the Clean Energy Venture Challenge, and they've been able to grow their company to where it is today, because you're only a year old, right? About a year old. And so I guess they're a great example of a social entrepreneurship organization that started as a student project, had to severely switch. So one of the things that we learned a lot when we work with students is that they all want to be co-owners and co-founders, and they all take an equal amount of equity, and then people go get jobs or they don't get jobs. And so they were a great example of how you want to sit down and start at the beginning and talk about what all those titles mean, and what does it mean in the future. And that's something you could talk about probably for a long time. But
Investing works.
Right.
No one ever invests, did they?
One of the things that we do with all of our students at the University of Michigan is we have access to a free legal clinic, which is amazing for
Great.
students to sit down and talk to you right at the start, so they understand all the different issues. And so if you guys are going to start a company, if you're going to start something, you should figure that out, especially if you have other team members. And even though 50% of something that doesn't exist is worthless, you want to have that conversation at the start.
Are
Oh,
you
just to
selling
point-
products? Are they selling products right now or no?
Right now we're in clinical testing. Yeah.
I was just going to point out that the WMU Legal Clinic is great. Is it open to people who are not WMU students?
So
Or, I
mine's
mean,
a
U of M, sorry.
You know,
U of M Legal Clinic.
I
Is
think
it-
that's a great question. I think
The answer is no.
the answer is
Oh.
no.
Well, for those of you then who are not at U of M, if you're at U of M, use the clinic. MSU also has one, and they just announced they are open to
Yay, Michigan
students
State.
who are not. And I think, does Wayne also? I think Wayne State also has a legal clinic.
Right.
So if, whatever university you're at, if they have a law school, go there and find out, go check, because it's very possible they may have assistance for you.
And then anyone who would like to, I'll invite you to go to the AnnArborUSA.org website. We do live events. One of them is called Business Law and Order, and we always video stream those events and record them. So we have a whole library of attorney panel discussions that cover everything from what do I need to worry about when I form a company, capitalization table, who owns what percentage, operating agreements.
IP, do you do IP stuff?
Intellectual property. We have intellectual property 1 and 2. You know, talking about patents, how do they work? What's a patent landscape? What's a freedom to operate? What does licensing look like? That's something that Wes's office deals with. We have employment law. We have, you know, contracts, international. So there's this whole sort of resource base available to you. And, you know, that it can answer a lot of questions fairly quickly. Although, unfortunately, sometimes you'll watch it and realize, darn it, I have to hire an attorney. But at least you know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other questions for our panelists before we wrap it up? All right.
Any other questions?
We take answers too.
Yeah. Any pearls of wisdom you guys want to share with us?
All right.
Thank you.
Quiet crowd. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Excellent.